Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to the next episode of Humans of Talos. I am here today with Terryn Valikodath. We are so excited to have you on. We have had people from incident response on before, mostly incident commanders, and so I'm excited to get your perspective on a few different things. So,
Yeah,
welcome to the show.
thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I didn't realize I was the first one, but yeah, it's cool. I get to
Yeah.
represent that side of the house first.
Can you tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about what you do here in Talos?
Yep, sure thing. So, my title is I'm a senior incident response consultant, basically incident responder, like you said. The unique thing with us is we do things proactive and reactive. So, we will work on the proactive side, helping develop incident response plans, tabletop exercises, threat hunts, training, all types of stuff like that. But we also do the reactive side, which is what you would typically think with an incident responder of organization tells us something bad's going on. We come in, try to figure it out, give them an idea of what happened, and give them recommendations to hopefully get them back up on their feet. So it's nice we get a little look into both sides of the world.
And so on my end, I always see the various reports that come through and, I'm in charge of editing those, sending those out back to you guys so that they can go back to customers. Is it difficult to balance all of the different kinds of services that Talos IR provides? And is there an aspect of this job that you like most?
Yeah, it is. It definitely takes a little bit of getting used to, since most cybersecurity roles you're doing one or the other. You're not really doing a mix of it all. So that definitely takes some getting used to. But I do think it's helpful because we know we can directly speak to what's going on. So like when we're developing an incident response plan, we're telling them like, hey, make sure you write out all the contacts that you need, so at the time you can get everyone on the phone right away. We can talk about it. 2 weeks ago, we did this and it didn't go well. So you need to make sure you do that. So I think that helps a lot in terms of just applying directly what we do with the proactive services. And it gives, I'm sure, a level of trust to the customers too. So that part is really cool. An aspect I think I really like is we do a cyber range training, which is basically a 3 day course where we train other technical folks how to do like kind of entry level to intermediate incident response. So that's always been a favorite of mine because I'm a huge proponent of teaching. I do a lot of that even with our internal team. So it's fun to be able to kind of show them behind the hood of what we actually do, because I think a lot of people think it's this huge mystery and you have to be super specialist, but really it's just time and dedication.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So I'm curious, like, this is a really high pressure job. I cannot imagine the things that you do. What inspired you to pursue a career in incident response?
Yeah, so it's kind of been in my blood. So originally, when I first was getting into the career, well, the first thing I wanted to do was paleontologist, but that kind of petered out. But you can probably see all the skulls behind me, so it's still there. But after that, the next kind of major career I wanted to go for was a crime scene technician or working in a forensic lab. So more traditional forensic science, definitely more human side of things. And my bachelor's is actually in that with criminology and forensic science. So after I did that and I started going for a master's, talking with a few of the professors and people around me, they kind of uncovered to me that, like, hey, all those years you had jailbreaking iPhones, breaking your dad's computer, doing all this stuff of just absolutely destroying every piece of technology you have, that's like a career, like a pretty good one. So I shifted kind of from the human side to more the digital side, and but a lot of that still carried through. But a lot of it was just kind of restarting from there, of working in IT, working in cybersecurity, getting a hold of that. But I think the moment for me was when I worked as a cybersecurity engineer in one of the teams. We had our first kind of big incident take place where it looked to be APT adjacent. Never know, but it seemed to be. We were kind of going through the whole motions of the investigation, uncovering logs, doing the whole thing, putting the puzzle together. And I was excited during the whole thing, but I remember at the end of every day, everyone was exhausted. They hated it. They're like, "Oh, when is this going to be done? This is going so long." but I was just excited. I was just jumping. I'm like, oh, what do we do next? Where do we go to for here? And they're like trying, like, no, you need to go break and do something else. So I think that was the moment for me. I was like, okay, I think I like this thing more than other people do. So maybe I should focus back in and do that.
Yeah, no, I feel like this is a common trend that I find across a lot of people in Talos that I reach out to is like people are so passionate about the work that they do that they forget to take breaks, they
Yeah.
forget to sign off. And oftentimes their leaders have to go to them and be like, actually, we'll see you in a few days.
Yep.
So how do you first, like, how do you recognize that you are at that point where, you're like a little burnt out? And then, like, how do you decompress and recover from that?
Yeah. So I think the first time I realized it was I had to like convince myself practically because, like you're saying, I think everybody on our team is like, we're just going to keep going until it's done. Like, it's fine.
Mhm.
We don't need to eat. We don't need to sleep. But what I realized, I think, over time is as I'm doing this, I'm getting to those points where I'm just like banging my head against the wall, not making progress. Like, when I step away and just like go for a walk, just do something else and come back, like, oh, I'm like 20 times better when I come back. So now
Yeah.
I think I've practically convinced myself that, like, yeah, if you actually take a break, you will do this better.
What are some of the things that you really love and enjoy and are passionate about outside of, incident response and outside of what you do day in
Mhm.
and day out, which is a bit of a loaded question, I guess,
Yeah.
but
No, there's definitely a part of me that, this is what I do even outside of my work. But I think I've learned now that I need other stuff. Like, it's just not
yeah.
the best to do that. So for me lately, a lot of it is I've been doing a lot more drawing and painting. I used to do a ton of drawing when I was younger, but not really know how to draw, just draw. So now I'm kind of going through the process of actually learning, how to draw, how to render, how to paint. So that's been my kind of step away activity of, just drawing, painting. My favorite thing to decompress, honestly, is putting on just a YouTube videos for hours on end, just sitting there and just drawing and just letting my brain recover. That's usually what I'm doing if you're not seeing me online.
Knowing what you know now about incident response, and cybersecurity in general, what advice would you give someone who's interested in pursuing this kind of a career?
So the three things I've kind of come to is like first is in a vague sense is like understanding how the tech works and how people use it. And what I mean by that is basically like when you turn on a Windows computer, like what actually happens when you log into a computer in an enterprise network, like what actually occurs. I think
Mhm.
learning more and more about that kind of stuff helps a lot because at the end of the day, most of what we do is comparing what's normal and what's abnormal. The second aspect from there is communicating very technical things to non-technical people. Um, I think for me, there's this huge perception of if you're working in IT, you never have to deal with people. You're just dealing with computers all day. But it's pretty much the opposite. You actually deal with more people that not only are also technical, but a lot that are not. So it's probably more difficult than, say, working in finance or something like that. Um, so that's been a big thing I always push to for folks that ask me about it is making sure you know how to explain something to someone that has no idea what a domain controller is. Like, how do you explain the concept of logging into someone like that? um, I think that's a huge component, and then that ties to the last part, which I think you'll appreciate, which I talk about and try to write about a lot myself, is note taking and report writing because
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things that like we're taught all these like technical aspects of like how do we do the investigation, how do we do that, but we're never taught like, okay, how do you take notes during that whole process? How do you document everything that you found? And then how do you tell that story to someone that needs to make a decision based on what you're going to give them? So I'm a huge proponent of learning, like actually learning about writing, how to tell stories in your writing, how to communicate, how to dissect things and like editing. Obviously, those types of things are
Yeah.
so important to actually get a point across because you're probably going to leave the organization one day. You're probably not going to be there when they're making the decision. So all that's going to be left is your writing. So it's important to have that there and represent what you actually were thinking at the time.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was really great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and glad to always chat with folks and talk more about what we do. It seems very hidden and in the dark, but it's really, you can ask any one of us, and I think we'll all tell you exactly what we do.
Thank you all so much for joining today, this episode of Humans of Talos. Please feel free to subscribe to our channel so that you can be notified when the next episode is up. And we'll see you next month. Hopefully, you have a great, great January and start to 2026. Thanks so much.